EA Games.
Their aspirations, their goals are not just based on the aspiration that you set for them, but what their personality is, what their age is, and how you've played them. So the events that have happened in their lifetime. These become very specific, and it brings a whole new texture and dimension to your Sims that you're now playing.
If you want to mess with your Sims, do whatever you want. Like, ignore what it is they want. Try to satisfy their fears or realize their fears. But if you're trying to actually get the highest score and buy the biggest, reward objects and things like that, a big piece of it is really just being consistent. So if you're playing your Sim to have a family, keep doing the things that relate to having a family. So don't have them flirt with the neighbor when they're married and their wife is sitting there in the living room. If they have kids, teach them to study and, or teach them to walk and teach them to talk and potty train them and all those things. Have them play your Sims.
The Sim actually has wants and fears, and you see those right in the user interface.
A lot of people also play this game not just for the benefit of their Sims, but because they want to knock them around a little bit. That's the kicking the sandcastle metaphor. And we give, obviously, plenty of opportunity for you to torture those little Sims.
In Sims 1, you could sort of imagine or tell a story like, oh, my Sim doesn't like this other Sim, so if I have that other Sim over for a party, then that's bad. That's fun. I'm messing with my Sims. Now we've made it much more clear. Like, you can just look down. If you select your Sim and you look right there, it says, oh, he's afraid of fire. If he's a child, he's afraid of being in the dark.
So, for example, a romance Sim may actually really want to, get a girlfriend or hook up and have their first kiss, and their fear may be abject rejection. So, what you want to do is actually play them to their wants. However, if you actually do trip over one of their fears, it hurts them on their aspiration score. And this can in turn evolve into a lifetime of stress, despair, and definitely a shorter lifetime for your Sim.
What's not obvious is that if you really want to get to interesting fears, if you want your Sim to be afraid of something less generic, you have to satisfy some of his wants. So if your Sim wants to get promoted, if he's a wealth-oriented Sim and he wants to get a job and then he wants to get promoted and he wants to reach level 5 of the career track, his fears will progress. So if he's, the higher level he reaches in his career, he'll start being afraid of getting demoted, he'll start being afraid of getting fired, and then you can make him miss the carpool and make him miss a day of work, and then if he gets fired, then he'll realize a fear and it'll get worse. But that's, I guess, satisfying enough wants so that your Sim has sort of experienced enough things that he knows what to be afraid of, is one way to play it. It's not a way to get a good score, but it's a way when you create your Sims and you bring them into the world, well, first you're making a choice you never had to make in Sims 1. You're choosing sort of what does my Sim care about, and you're not choosing my Sim is like food Sim or a shower Sim or whatever. You're saying my Sim is family oriented or my Sim is wealth oriented and so on. But then when you get in the game, your focus is on the sort of your Sim's desires, right? That's where you're looking and you're saying, what does he want to do next? And how do I arrange that in the game?
I think what's most exciting about it is that the Sims are now telling you what they want to do with their free time. It's a very new dynamic. It's very different from Sims 1, in which they were just telling you what they needed.
In Sims 1, you kind of got the sense that they looked like people and you were building a little house, but in the end they were just worried about whether they're going to pee themselves or not. And you know, your biggest problem was that they were going to starve to death or something like that.
Now in The Sims 2, Sims are not thinking only about their basic needs anymore.
In Sims 2, your Sims are more concerned with the bigger picture, so they're unhappy or happy about who you're having them talk to and who you're having them kiss and who you're having them fall in love with.
In fact, they actually have dreams, lifetime aspirations. So when you create a Sim, you actually get to choose what their lifetime aspiration, their lifetime goal is going to be.
Every aspiration has careers that are suited to it, and you can choose to pick whatever career you want, but if you pick the careers that are sort of your Sim's natural vibe, once you've told them to be a knowledge Sim, making him a scientist is a good thing, but you know, making him a politician is kind of silly because it's not going to really line up with what he wants.
And as a player, your goal is to help them satisfy their dreams. Or on the flip side, actually play to their fears.
For the player, it's a lot less press the lever, get a pellet, like Sims 1 was. It's more, my Sim wants to fall in love. Okay, how do I do that? And then the level of how you do that with multiple Sims. So, you know, I have all these Sims who have all these different desires.
It's always a strategy, if you want, to make everybody the same. There's some advantages to that. You're going to avoid a lot of the classic conflicts, you know? If both your Sims are romance Sims, they're probably not going to want to get married to each other, and they're probably not going to care how many romances the other one has. But you're also going to miss some of the synergies in this game that are going to make it so great.
One of them wants to fall in love, and one of them wants to learn how to be a mechanic, and one of them wants to be really popular, and one of them wants lots of money. And juggling all that is a very different kind of satisfying, but very different kind of problem.
Someone's going to go to work, might as well be someone who really likes to go to work. Someone's got to stay home and cook for that Sim who's going to work. In the classic Sims strategy, might as well be somebody who wants to stay home and do that. So I think while you're avoiding some of the obvious conflicts by making everybody the same, you're missing out on some of the advantages.
Along the course of helping a Sim satisfy his lifetime goals, the Sims really encounter these events that are big life moments. They're these memories that really shape who they are.
A big part of The Sims 2 is also putting your Sims in very extreme situations. It is a game, it's not real life. And we want it to be fun, and we want it to be kind of outside the boundaries of realism. So we've built in what we're currently calling the impossible wants. So this is like a Sim that wants to have 25 kids, for instance. That's not possible in real life, possibly, but in Sims 2, if you play very strategically, you'll be able to achieve that ultimate want.
So your knowledge Sim, for instance, one of the things that they really are into is proving that there are ghosts. So seeing ghosts is something that really helps them succeed along their aspirational track. Cheating death would be another one for that knowledge Sim. And these kind of events that happen are treated with a cinematic and really brought up in terms of the gameplay.
I think a player who's paying close attention to the game is going to see that the Sim talks about the thing that's happened. And they'll pass that information around.
And they'll spread the news of what's happened with one Sim throughout the neighborhood. And this can create all sorts of crazy conflict and chaos in a Sim's life.
I think it's going to be really exciting when an event that you saw or played on one house, when you see that Sims in a totally different house who may not have even been there for that event are talking about that event because they know somebody who was there.
On the flip side, if you indulge in their fears, whether it be that they're just afraid of roaches, or whether it's rejection for your romance sim, or actually meeting up with the Grim Reaper for a family sim. These things are ultimately going to push that sim's aspiration score down. Now, a sim who's in aspiration failure is really kind of a kooky, crazy character. They start to worry, they have nightmares, and then they get a little desperate. And when your sims get desperate, they have some very strange behavior that you're going to witness and see in the game. Your romance sim, for instance, well, they have a sponge mop lover that they actually interact with, trying to really help them in their romance track, all the way down to the point where they just get into a state of nervous breakdown.
If you made me a family sim, but you're having me worry about my career and go make lots of money, and I'm not meeting anybody special, everything else, he may then start asking you to like nudge him back towards the family thing. You might be like, hey, I'd really like to meet somebody. I know you're big on this job thing, but it'd be great if you really have some people over so that I could try to meet somebody that I really like and fall in love. That even though the player doesn't see them necessarily ahead of time, your sim is sort of building a tree of experience of things that that you're having him do with either a particular sim or with objects in the world or anything else.
You really don't know what a sim's going to want next, so you really want to give them the things they want, and then see what turns over in the panel and shows up next, and then go after that. And then sometimes you can unlock an entire sort of storyline, and if you just keep following that, you might find something at the end of it that you didn't expect to find.
It's no longer some of the mundane factors that, players have actually had a tremendous amount of experience with playing the original Sims. So much less emphasis on those needs, much more emphasis on the events of your Sim's lifetime.
Diversity is one of the best strategies. And at the same time, it's a challenge all in of itself for reasons of compatibility and incompatibility.
Much like the original Sims, the personality traits and how you set up your families, the family unit itself, what ages you have and included in the family, has a lot to do with the play strategy. Obviously, those motives and those skills are still really important to how a family works together. You still want to have somebody in the family who's really neat to make sure that they're cleaning up after the family. So setting those extreme personality traits is definitely a benefit.
Another strategy for The Sims is, and this was true in the first game, which is really how do you create your family? What are the different Sims that make up a family to make it the most efficient and optimized kind of functional family? And one of the ways you can do that in Sims 2 is make sure that you've got some Sims that have the family aspiration, and they're going to get highly rewarded for having kids and teaching things to their kids, and for their kids having kids, and really growing the whole family tree. But you want to make sure you also have some Sims in the family that are orientated toward wealth and career and money, so that you've constantly got money coming into the family. So really balancing the type of Sims that are in your family is a good way to optimize that family for success.
Genetics is more than just how big your nose is or what color your hair is. It's, are you mean? Are you nice? Are you neat? Are you sloppy? Vanilla personalities where everything's sort of right down the middle doesn't really produce generations that are much different.
There are ways in the game to actually influence and increase the personality points that you get out of Create a Sim. So as a player, you're going to want to try and maximize your personality points with your children, because as they grow up, they actually pass those personality traits down to the next generation. So you can actually end up with Sims that have more personality points or traits than they can get being created in Create a Sim.
Spend those points. Give your Sims some strong personalities. Your gameplay will just be funny. It also means the children are going to have something more to inherit. I think working to make sure that there's diversity in that gene pool. Mix up the hair colors, mix up the skin colors, mix up the eye colors. Download that custom content. Don't forget that those are genetics too. Somebody's out there making the blue leopard skin. They're out there. And if you get that skin, you're going to see it in subsequent generations. It's not just something that you're going to paint your sim with for today. So, you know, Sims are going to want love if they're family. They're going to want hugging and kissing if they're romance. They're going to want money if they're wealth, and so on. And sometimes the only way to get those things is to have other Sims in the neighborhood with whom you can interact. So one of the important things to remember is don't just play one house. Have other houses going that have the Sims in there that you can meet, that your Sim that you're playing right now can meet and interact with. Remember that grandma, when she's living alone, still is probably going to want her grandchild to grow up good. She's still going to want to see her children get married. So you're going to need to play those other Sims.
The older generations can share knowledge or wisdom with the younger generations. And because you're playing across a neighborhood now, you can actually have the grandparents live in another house. So it's not like you have to play all of those Sims all the time to get their benefit. You can actually have grandma and grandpa live in another house, invite them over, have them share knowledge with the kids via different objects in the game that share career knowledge, or they can actually pass along and encourage personality development. So you have the not very nice child, or the kind of grumpy child who grandma's very nice and she encourages him to be nice, and you can actually change his personality in the game. So there's a lot of benefit of having this widespread family and friend network across an entire neighborhood. It's not just one house anymore. You're playing an entire neighborhood.
Keeping your Sims in sync with regard to age is a key element of this game. And that's another reason why you don't want to be playing just one house all the time. You're going to have to play the different houses to keep them sort of in balance with each other time-wise. Nothing says you have to do this, but a lot of the wants that your Sim is going to have, you know, I want to fall in love, I want to get married, I want to have kids, or I want to have a best friend, you know, are going to be wants that depend on there being Sims out there.
A lot of the strategy tips in Sims 2 haven't been found yet. In Sims 1, much of the strategy was developed through player creativity. The Black Widow strategy of marrying the neighbors and then killing them off and getting their money, that wasn't something we specifically set out to do. It was something through player creativity that was developed and kind of capitalized on.
Some of the greatest strategies of Sims 1 were not things that we thought of. They were things that the players realized they needed to do or wanted to do to get the most out of the system, or to get around some of the things we said you shouldn't be able to do.
Why would you ever want to do that to your Sim? And that's the whole point, is that this is a huge huge game. And Sims 2 is just exponentially bigger than Sims 1. There are so many strategies, gameplay techniques that haven't been unlocked yet because the players haven't gotten a hold of it yet.
There's a lot of strategies out there that the players are going to develop that we don't have yet. And it's not because we didn't think them through. It's because this game is a toolbox. It's a toy more than a game. And the options are almost infinite.
Even for people who've played the game for years, they're still unlocking and discovering strategies because it is such an open-ended game. It's just this big, huge sandbox, and not everybody tries everything that can be done in the game. And Sims 2 is so much larger than Sims 1. All of the strategies haven't been unlocked yet. They just haven't.
The Sims are a lot more intelligent now about eating when they're hungry and sleeping when they're tired. But they're still not so good at making sure there's time left over in the day after that. That's your job. Sometimes you'll get lucky and the Sim will want to do something that happens to fulfill a need that they have right now. But more often, you're going to need to really work to optimize the needs game so that you win back that extra time, so that you can spend it on the things that Sim wants.
Much like us in life, we always want to carve out time to do the things we want to do that aren't about just kind of surviving day to day. And now the Sims are going to tell you that. They're going to say, I want to have a baby, I want to get promoted. And it's really your job to make sure that you're carving out enough time to give the Sims what they want, and you'll be rewarded for doing that. You don't have to give them what they want, and indeed you can give them what they don't want. But if you do pay attention to that, then you'll be rewarded for that.
Your job is to help them be smarter about sleeping when they're tired and eating when they're hungry. Eating better food. Better food means you don't have to eat as often. Build those cooking skills so that the food can be better. Now in Sims 2, you can choose the specific food that your Sim is going to make and do the trade-offs yourself between the amount of time it takes to make that food and how much hunger it satisfies.
Although the motive game is de-emphasized to give you more time to concentrate on your Sim's dreams, their lifetime goals, you can't forget about their motives. So you really, as a player, have to pay attention to, are they taking care of themselves? Am I giving them the opportunity to take care of themselves? So as a player, you really want to be watching their mood as well as their wants, and not forget about the mood, because otherwise you can find yourself in a hole that you have to dig out of.
I think one of the most important things to remember when you're playing this game is that you don't have an infinite amount of time. In Sims 1 you did, here you really don't. Time is marching on. So keep that in mind in the back of your head whenever you play. There's that old saying, time is money. Well, now everything's time. I think the players who feel they've gotten everything there is to get out of The Sims and are looking to us to see what more we have to offer are looking for an opportunity to measure their own skill in a way that they didn't have before. And in Sims 2, there's a real measure, and that's the aspiration. I don't want to just call it a score, because we hope it's more than that.
For the gamer that's really trying to achieve all the things the game has to offer, and to knock off all the the bowling pins, the wants and fears really give them a way to do that. You have goals now, and they're specific to the age ranges, and the ultimate goal is to have a Sim that has lived the perfect life.
Your Sim is going to really need you to focus on the most efficient use of their time possible to get them to the top of their aspiration.
Creating a family unit and having the parents bestow all of their time on the children to maximize the children is really one of the best strategies in the game, because you're going to spend the most time in terms of a lifetime with the kids. You have the best opportunity to maximize their aspiration. You have the best opportunity to maximize their career. You have the best opportunity to maximize their skills if you start when they're kids, when they're even toddlers, because it's a time game.
Think of it in terms of your own life. There's a lot of things you want to do, but you may or may not be able to do them all before that fateful day comes. And that fateful day is coming for every sim. There's new ways for your sim to die that I've got my favorite, which involves a piece of orbital hardware that makes an untimely return to Earth. And I'm not going to tell you how that happens.
I'll tell you what one of my favorite ones is, but I'll let you guys figure out how to trigger it. It's called Death by Flies. And I'll let you guys figure out how you actually get it to happen.
Those things are in there for you to find, and they're more than Easter eggs. They're the gold that's sort of hidden in and amongst the different parts of the game. I think there were elements in the first game that got repetitive quickly, and in this game we're hoping that those elements are a little bit more rewarding and a little richer, and that your sim is going to lead you to those elements in the game by what they want, and they're going to want what they want by the way you play them. And the better you play those
The launch of Sims 2 is a major event in the history of gaming. If you think about it, it's the sequel to the biggest PC game of all time, and that's certainly something to pay attention to, I think. Games as a whole today touch so many more people than you might imagine. When you think about the Sims, the original Sims, that's in its various forms and expansion packs, sold about 34 million copies of software, and so that's a lot of people that you touch with that game. And so anything that has that type of coverage really has the opportunity to impact popular culture. And I think that what we've tried to do is we've tried to build a really compelling entertainment experience that happens to be a computer game at the same time. And I think through that we should be able to affect pop culture in the way that great art or entertainment affects pop culture. I think most gratifying is the accolade that you get from fans and people within the industry, whether they're retailers or press or people that are competitors. When you see The Sims 2, it's a pretty exciting piece of software. You're struck immediately by how good and how fresh the game looks, and as soon as you get into the software and you're past the create your own sim, create your own family, build your own house, pick your own neighborhood, build your own neighborhood, and you get into playing the game, you find that wants and fears, that new addition of sort of your Sim's dreams, really adds this new dimension to gameplay that really kind of changes what was an enjoyable but sort of Groundhog Day-like experience into something that is really reflective of all of the high moments, the extreme moments of real life. When you think about building a piece of software and you think about what is it? What's the nugget? What's the thing that kind of encapsulates all of the things that you're doing? You get to this concept of the X. Sort of X marks a spot at the very center of what it is that you're building. And so the X for The Sims 2 is Sims 2, Genes, Dreams, and Extremes. And what that really means is you can't produce the sequel to The Sims without acknowledging the fact that it's the sequel to The Sims. And so having Sims 2 in there is really important. The dreams really speak to the wants and the fears, that new aspirational gameplay that that changes the dimensionality of the software. The genes talks to not just the life stages that we have, but the fact that the genetic traits are passed down from, from father to son, from mother to daughter, as you go through the game. And then the extremes really talks about the high and the low moments of life, which really sort of encapsulates all of those funny opportunities in the software. One way to think about The Sims 2 is it's really an infinite simulation, an infinite people simulation. And there are so many options. I mean, you can start as a baby, go to a toddler, become a child, a teenager, an adult, an elder. You can die, you can have children, you can have partners, you can get married, you can build houses, you can have families, you can have many families, you can have lovers, you can have many lovers. There's so many different options in The Sims 2. And so, on the one hand, that gives you just a massive degree of diversity. Almost, the only limit really is your imagination. And then the challenge that presents, of course, is you need to be able to cut a path through the, through the play experience for the user. And I think we've been able to do that, to a great degree with the software.
About 10 years before I did The Sims, in fact, I started The Sims in '93. I started a long, long time ago and worked on it kind of in the background for many years. But 2 years previous, in 1991, our home burned down in the Oakland Hills fire, and we lost everything. I got out with a few pictures, and that was it. So from square one, we had to kind of build our lives back up. We had to go, kind of buy a house, then buy furniture, buy clothes, buy all the, buy a new car. All the stuff that had burned up in the fire. And it was interesting just kind of looking at the order in which, we acquired things, Step one, new underwear, toothbrush, Step two, maybe some new pants and shirts, And then, step three, rent a hotel room and kind of building your life back up, and getting a sense of the materialistic basis, and which things are really important in a minute-to-minute basis. At the same time, we got out of the fire safely, and my daughter was elsewhere, and she was safe. And we realized how meaningless these material things were relative to our safety. And so that was just, very interesting, that whole process that happened, a couple years before I started thinking about doing The Sims.
The most exciting part of The Sims 2 is how much we're putting into the Sims themselves. They are the focus of the game, and that's what people want. They have much more depth to their personality. They are aware of their surroundings. They respond to their surroundings, the events that take place, the relationships that they have with the other Sims in the room.
You're going to know when someone's a slob. You're going to know when somebody is really nice. You're going to know when somebody is really active. You're going to see that on the screen and the way that the Sims behave.
They can react to things such as a spider being in the room that they might be afraid of. Another Sim who has gotten into a bit of hygiene failure and is getting a bit smelly, they're going to walk by and just, whew, that's not good.
The Sims in Sims 2, first of all, they have distinguishable facial features which the player can actually control and create. In addition to that, they now have facial animation, so you can see them smile, you can see them frown. They're just much more alive than they were in Sims 1.
There's been a huge amount of improvement made in the ability to create the environment that these better Sims are going to live in.
One of the first things that players will notice in Sims 2 is that the environment is a full 3D world. And I don't want to say, oh, it's in 3D and that's why it's better, but it's amazing how much more connected players are going to feel to that world, because you can zoom in and out of it and rotate around it, and it never disappears from the screen. You've always got that house that you've created and the characters that you've created, and you can look at them at any angle, and it makes it a much more compelling experience because you just feel so connected to what's on the screen, and it feels so real.
One of the cool things with Sims 2 is the new camera features, where it lets you get in really close and really become intimate with your Sims and what's going on in those settings.
With sexy looking Sims like this, you want to get up close and personal.
I'm already starting to plan out the movies that I'm going to make within the Sims 2.
If you look at the best-selling games of the last few years, we're getting games that are much more open-ended, where the player really determines their fate, and they're not on rails. You might have missions, you might have goals, but anytime you can kind of break away from that and go off and do something really goofy or twisted. And then you can like show that to other people. You can like save it and then kind of upload it or take screenshots or whatever. But I think, you know, the idea that you're playing a game and you can find kind of regions of that gameplay that nobody's ever been to before. You know, then you're kind of an explorer. You're exploring this vast possibility space. And my favorite games all had that feeling for me that I was exploring this vast space of possibilities. And in doing so, I could be fairly creative. You know, I could go off into areas of the game that maybe the designers didn't intend me to go off into.
We don't plan for everything. We don't. I mean, so much of the magic of this game is that we have this open world, this sandbox, and there's AI that controls the way that the Sims interact with their world. But we don't capture every instance.
Even now, when we're playing The Sims, they feel a little out of control at times. You know, you get a Sim who's barfing while you're trying to make food in the kitchen.
I think one of the primary things we want to do with The Sims 2 is we want to build that community around the game, or continue the community from The Sims 1 into The Sims 2 just as strong, and find out ways to interface with the community to make it even stronger. And give the fans ways to be even more creative in the game and to share more stuff. Because I think that is really the story behind the success of The Sims.
The people who really live to make content for other people. We love those people. Those people are really, really important to us. And we're working very hard in The Sims 2 to make much more powerful ways for those people to get involved.
Players have really told us over time, and we do listen to the fans of The Sims quite a bit, that they want to see their Sims change. They also want to have the sense that they can influence the lives of their Sims.
The way your Sim develops, you know, from toddler to kid, to teen, to adult, to senior, and the way you organize their life as they develop can make for pretty big changes. So, you know, if your kid doesn't get enough attention from mom and dad, boy, the teenage angst, you know, the slamming doors and the ignoring the parents and, you know, kind of dyeing your hair black and wearing leather and hanging out with the bad kids, they get kind of out of control.
Sims 2 is going to allow Sims players to experience that whole range of a lifetime and all the experiences that roll up into that that they couldn't do before.
The kids who are the wild teenagers, who actually, you know, don't die as teenagers, they're the most creative adults. As you know, there's nobody in Hollywood or in the video game business who was a straight A student in high school. You can play through childhood, save, and then try to get as dysfunctional as you can as a teenager, or have as, you know, a happy, a yum teenage life as you can, and see where that leads. Go back to the kid and now say, okay, now I'm going to see if I do something different. So there are way more branching lives in Sims 2.
There's a large amount of people that play The Sims to tell stories. And within The Sims 2, the movie making feature is the new way to tell stories, and it's a huge improvement over what we've seen in the past with Sims 1. In Sims 1, what we had to tell stories was we had static snapshots, so the player would take a snapshot of that scene. Whereas in Sims 2 now, we have full motion video capture of everything that's happening on the screen. A second thing about Sims 2 is that we have a fully roaming camera. In Sims 1, you were fairly constrained with your camera. In Sims 2, you can go anywhere. This is a really powerful feature of The Sims 2, and it's very accessible to your average player, but like any powerful feature, a few tips, a few tricks really helps out to really take full advantage of this new feature within The Sims 2. When using the movie making tool in The Sims 2, you should really consider 3 factors. One is the quality of what you're going to end up with. The second one is the size of the movie that it's going to create for you. And the third one is just how much that movie making has an effect on your gameplay. And so those 3 factors are up to you to adjust within the UI, the camera UI options panel. We do a job of sniffing your PC and trying to make those options set for what we think will work really well for you. But for example, you may want to create a larger file or a larger, higher quality scene, and you can go in and change those values. But if you have a higher quality scene, it's going to take more space on your hard drive. If you have a larger scene, so you want to go full screen capture, that's also going to take more space on your hard drive, and it might slow down the capture a little bit. Keep that in mind, that you want to balance off the size and the quality and whether you're capturing audio with the speed or the effect it will have on your gameplay. So go into that camera UI options panel and just play with those values. You're not going to hurt anything, just give it a go. If you're creating a horror movie, go into Body Shop and create a zombie. Create the zombie skin with the zombie clothes and a crazy looking zombie head. Or maybe you're creating a science fiction movie. Create an alien. Go into Create a Sim or Body Shop and create that alien with green skin or purple skin, with pointy ears, with crazy hair, and some funny alien clothes. Here's another thing to do if you really want to create a crazy looking cast. Find the cheat that allows you to ignore the bounds of Create a Sim when you're creating somebody's facial features. And then, after you've implemented or used that cheat, create faces that just stretch in all kinds of crazy ways, and you'll get some pretty funny looking actors to use in your movie. Think about just setting up the scene specifically for what you're trying to capture. So if you're trying to capture somebody sitting at a couch, making out with somebody else, don't build a full house to do that. Just build that part of the scene that you need to capture that. Let's say you want to use one of the fancy pre-created houses that exist within the game that as it's shipped. Here's an idea. Take your Sims that you've created that you want to use in that movie and move them into an empty lot. And in that empty lot, find the cheat that gives you more money and cheat up their money. And then take that family of Sims that you've just created and move them back into the family bin. Now go to that lot that you really want to use with that cool, expensive house in it, kill off all the Sims. Just kill them off, get rid of them, and then go back to your Sims that you've just created in the past, which have lots of money now, and have them buy that house. And there you've got a house at your disposal to use for movie making. Lighting is a really important part of any scene when using the movie making tool. The Sims 2 has a really great default lighting scheme, but when you want to add drama or you want to add attention to certain details, make sure you put lights where they matter. Put lights on the ground, put lights on the side, or put lights overhead. You have the option of putting lights just about anywhere in the game. Make sure you save us some money when you're playing the game to add those lights. So sure, you can use the cheat, but just make sure that you have enough money around to buy the lights to add that sense of drama or the highlighting to the scene that you're about to shoot. Sometimes when you're capturing things, it's just serendipity. You see things happening and you just want to capture that moment. You press the key and it starts recording. So when you're about to see that interesting situation unfold, don't be afraid to hit the pause key and hit it quickly, because that'll give you time to then set up your cameras and to get a scene that you really want to film. So the bottom line about movie making in The Sims 2 is it's addictive. Hours will pass like minutes, so keep looking at your watch, otherwise the sun will be coming up before you know it. Recording in The Sims 2 is a lot of fun, but you can easily lose track of time. Make sure you go into that camera UI panel and there's a cutoff timer value in there. Set it to what you think is appropriate. We'll set it to a minute, but if you really want to record for longer than a minute before the camera stops on you, just put up that value up to 2 minutes or up to 5 minutes. And that's a value that's a safeguard so that your camera recording doesn't go on forever and ever. Don't forget about the preset cameras in The Sims 2. You can go in and you can set 6 different preset cameras all around your house, all around your lot, and just flip between them as you're doing filming or even during normal gameplay. Just use the control key plus one of the numbers on the keypad from 4 to 9 and get those presets set up in advance. Keep in mind that you can also use the neighborhood to film in. And you go into the special cameraman mode in the neighborhood, you can get all kinds of interesting angles. Another thing that's really effective in creating movies is to have that camera that rotates right around a sim or right around an object. It's really easy to do. Right-click right where that sim is or right where that object is, and then use the rotate button to take that camera and go right around it and get that really cool effect. You can take that camera, you can put it inside of a fridge or put it inside of almost anything. Let your imagination run wild. Use the follow cam to actually track your sim. How you do that is you right-click on the sim's picture in the UI, and instantly you're put into tracking mode. And so your camera will follow that sim no matter where they go and produce some really cool looking shots. Try not to use just the default cameras. Go into cameraman mode and take that camera and move it right down to the ground or move it right at the sim's head level and play with the camera controls. Don't be afraid to play with the field of view, with the zoom, and with the pitch of that camera. Having more of a fisheye look to the camera adds a whole different view to that scene. As you've used the tool within The Sims 2 to create all these clips, you really want to assemble those clips into a more finished product. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to create a movie based on a song I've just heard. But sometimes what I do is I like to create my movie first and then find a song that matches that movie or that sequence that I've just created. Either way works really good, but remember, add music to your movie. Read online about basic filmmaking. So you've got all these clips that you've created with The Sims 2. Take an online course or take a class on filmmaking so that you know how you want to cut all those clips into a finished product. Grab a movie making or a movie editing tool from the internet or go out and purchase one to assemble those clips into a really powerful finished movie. Don't be afraid to use transitions or special effects within that movie editing tool. They really help make a scene come alive, and they really help transition between the various clips that you've created. There's cheats that'll really help you out in your movie making. Things like move objects, allow you to move objects to anywhere in the scene that really help out your filming. Things like slow motion. If you want the Sims to move in slow motion, it can be really effective. You might want to try stretch and shrink, so take your Sims and stretch them taller or shrink them a little bit. It can be kind of funny. And then there's also the effects, so that you can do things like put a letterbox effect or put a glow effect on your scene. So check the strategy guide and check the website for the latest cheats. Practice makes perfect when you're doing movie making in The Sims 2. There's a fair amount of controls to master, and I'd say just keep trying, keep using the rotates, the pans, the zooms, the fields of view, and practice a lot so that when that shot does come that you really want to capture, you can use all those facilities and capture it in a really powerful fashion.
EA Games. Challenge everything. Night Wig? Plágate! ¡Ne petak! Lugaba!
Lavla Shumba. What's in it, boy? Oh!
Morelisi, Camorisita. Bola Yodo. Down Quasha.
Trambola da titas.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
Huh? Hey, Robert. Already. Yeah. Huh? What fight? Blah, class.
Got a good reason for staying alive, said I. Got a good reason for watching my TV, said I. Got a good reason for keeping it together, said I. Got a good reason thinking to me, cause I'm doubling up. And I'm not the generation. Keeping it real with my corporate life form, cause I'm keeping it all. Read obsession. Fall in love with Commodore EA.
A lot of times during the development of a game, and this is any game, but specifically with The Sims, you're experimenting with the technology and trying to figure out what you can do with it and what sort of things you can make happen. And a lot of times things that you don't expect happen. And so we try to capture those and keep track of them because they make us laugh and we enjoy seeing them played back. And some of the most humorous moments are things that you didn't expect. When we were trying to test out the juggling, for example, we wanted to see if we could have them juggle objects that are in the world, and we needed something that animated, so we ended up using the baby. And so you see them juggling the baby, which you're never going to have that in the game, but as a cool kind of fun technology exploration, it's great. Then a lot of times you also have technical glitches that you'll see manifest themselves in really weird ways, and you can't help but laugh out loud, and like locomotion, which is how Sims move from one place to another. And so, for example, in a swimming pool, we have to have a swimming locomotion. It's how they move around. But it's funny when you apply it to their normal locomotion, you see them moving around the house as if they're swimming. And so we goof around all the time. And actually, features do often come out of just our goofing around with our technology. Oh, wow, look how cool it is that they can do that. Or I never thought they'd be able to do this. And so definitely that experience of playing with what we've got and figuring out how the technology can benefit the game is part of the development process. So our job is obviously to make sure that a lot of these things that we don't intend don't ship in the product. I mean, these are bugs, but some of them are so funny, you just can't help but hold on to them. And you do want to share them. Almost, you'd love to be able to put them in the game just for people to be able to see them, because some of them are just truly hilarious. And often, I mean, these are often things that do end up being Easter eggs in the game. You know, I don't want people to go looking for any of these particular ones, but sometimes those really wacky, crazy things that can happen do end up being Easter eggs that we leave in just.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
You say baka be aku I baka ever be it's okay or whatever said I can't take. Kimona shi o ike ina anywhere so taka loka mana mana kumushu tuwa kutish mate akeko mate akeko bana babisho tuwa kutish mate akeko mate akeko bana babisho.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
What?
Casting for The Sims.
Take that top shirt off. Let's see. Let's see what's going on under there. Excellent. Let's feel what this looks like here. Sexy boy. Sexy boy. Girls. No girls. Girls. Boys. Alan. For the part of? For the part of father.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims. Come on, let's crank it up. Let's go. You're rocking! Rocking! Stage dive! Do the stage dive! Stage dive! Stage dive! Out of sight, man.
David.
The part of?
The rocker.
Excellent, man.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims.
Incredible. Incredible! Your first name?
Dolores, for the part of the grandmother.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims.
What is the first thing you do to seduce somebody?
Oh, yes.
Now show us how you would kiss him. Don't choke him. Your first name?
Lynn.
For the part of?
Older sister.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims. You just won $1 million. You just got your first kiss.
First name?
Maurice.
What part you come in for?
The brother.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims.
Do some burlesque poses with the beach ball. Lovely. Another one? Good, 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 good. Hold that pose. Oh. Good. Your first name?
Warren.
For the part of?
Grandfather.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
Casting for The Sims? What kind of pants are those? What kind of stamps? What kind of pants are those? Oh, these pants? Fantastic! Yeah! Pull them up high. I'm at the maximum now. Yeah! Fantastic. Elwood! For the part of? For the part of father.
Now there's a game that lets you create and
New locations, new characters, new interactions. Pets, pals, and new places. Brace yourself. The Sims have. Big dreams, big stars, big egos. Brace yourself. Your Sim's a superstar. Rated T for teen. Tricks, treats, and trouble. Brace yourself. The Sims are making magic. Rated T for teen.
Out of the house and out of control. The Sims are busting out. Rated T for teen. Available on these gaming systems.